You know what? I don't.
Coming.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 20th Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. The time is now 6 p.m. Mr. Chair, it appears we have a quorum.
Thank you, Thomas, and welcome everybody in attendance live today. A bigger crowd than normal. Thank you. And anybody at home listening, glad to have you here. I will call roll. Stephanie Butler.
Here.
Allison Catula. Absent. Morgan Van Gelder.
Here.
Jason Alberici. Scott Minette.
Here.
Ralph Troop.
Here.
And myself. If we would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In front of everybody is today's meeting agenda, prepared dutifully by staff, even in absence of our fearless leader, Tom. I am going to ask for a couple of modifications so that we can get presentations and visitors in, out, and get the comment quicker. So be patient with me as you track along. I would like to approve a motion to approve today's agenda and move items 8C, 8A, 9A, and 9B up after committee reports.
I make a motion to move 8C, 8A, 9A, 9B to after committee reports.
A motion by Morgan. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second by Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. In front of you, you have a past meeting minutes from our meeting on February 20th. If there are no questions or concerns as they're prepared, I'd entertain a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 20th meeting minutes.
A motion by Stephanie,
I'll second.
a second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. The next item is item 5, public comment. This is for general public comment. If anyone's here to speak on a topic on the agenda, perhaps on conceptual designs for Deerfield, we'll have a moment to take that input later. If you are going to speak, we'd ask you to fill out a yellow comment card and turn it into Thomas. But if there's anyone with general comment for today's meeting, this is your chance. Thomas, anybody?
I don't believe there's any general public comment.
Okay, then we will move right directly into committee reports. And I will lead off with Hopewell Baseball. Had a great meeting with them this week. They are mid-season and I understand going to run a one-day in-park tournament. It's sort of a get practiced. They've got the Braves country coming out, so it sounds like a pretty exciting day, the end of the month.
Correct.
March-
Yeah, looking
March
forward to
3rd.
that on March 30th.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. So that's great. Eagle Sticks,
That's Allison.
missing
And
my.
yeah, in Allison and Jason's absence, I can touch on Eagle Sticks and North Georgia Rec. We're in the midst of the spring season with both programs. Everything seems to be going successful at both Legacy and Bell. We're playing our rec games, our select games at both parks. Scheduling a few makeups here and there. So fortunately, we've had the space to keep those games at home for our participants and find some Wednesday time slots for them. But overall, great season so far for the spring.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. Stephanie.
Not much to report other than registration's open.
Good. Halftime sports, Ralph.
Yeah, no new updates. They are currently running Sunday, the Sunday basketball program that runs through April 20th.
Great. Thank you. The Milton Mustangs.
So we have closed registration, had our suit fitting earlier this week. 200 swimmers, a little smaller from last year, but in a good way. So
Good. Yeah. I have nothing particular on tennis. Thomas, you have anything from?
I have no report.
Okay. Next couple probably fall to staff a little bit. I want to talk about youth arts programming.
Yeah, I'll get that one. we're just kind of in the spring youth program sessions. I will say in a couple weeks on April 2nd, our children's theater class is having their performances across the street, like on the, over by the green on that Wednesday. So we're definitely very, very excited for that.
Great. Thanks, Matthew.
Mhm.
Adult programming.
I can touch on adult programming. First, we have our Rush Union adult soccer program. Just completed their winter season last week, and no time to rest. We've already started our spring season, beginning on Monday. So looking forward to a great season of 11 versus 11 as well as 7 versus 7 for the spring season. Additionally, we have our adult petanque program run out of the parking lot, the gravel lot at Bell Memorial Park. We pushed this year for an introductory spring session running on Tuesday, Thursdays. Unfortunately, the class did not make. We do have a lot of petanque participants, but they're not. They don't fall under the introductory course anymore. So they definitely take advantage of the weekends out there and playing on the court. So we have a strong petanque programming. We're just still trying to introduce it to those folks that don't yet know about it. So
Right. Awesome. Camp Joyful Souls.
that one's me again. I'd love to touch on that one. No big reports since last month. We're still full, still have campers on the wait list. Hoping to bring at least 3 to 5 per week off the wait list, depending on how we can staff everything up. With that said, we're making offers to counselors, trying to get that in place as we continue to plan for our field trips and summer schedule for June and
That's
July.
great. Summer day camp.
Yes, so we officially hired our summer camp manager. She actually started this week. She's very excited. Also, as well, too, the numbers are very high as well. We got 3 weeks currently that have waiting lists right now, and we do have a couple of more spots in the other weeks that we still have as well. But yeah, and then after that, we're just trying to just work on the hiring process for camp counselors.
Right. Thanks, Matthew.
Mhm.
Last but not least, outdoor recreation programming. Jen.
Our preschool outdoor learning program started back up today and with this beautiful weather in the outdoors. We had the Birmingham Trail cleanup some weekends ago. Scott was there. Thank you for that. We had a record high number of 52 volunteers out at Birmingham Park. Several regular equestrian users, some folks that live in the area, and those that love to walk. And we had a lot of projects for them. We're not done, so we could use another day. Last month, we hosted our first fishing class of the season. It was full. In fact, I'm grateful. Fred from the Planning Commission came over and he was just curious about it. He ended up helping me out, so I'm grateful for him. And we have another class coming up. Ralph, got your kids all registered. We're good to go. And then Wildlife 101, it came out last month with a smashing hit. It was packed. The Q&A was packed. In fact, due to that class, a few people had called asking for help with some injured and orphaned animals since then, and I was able to redirect them where they need to go. So I would say the first one was a banger. This coming week will be about pond ecology. Scott, I think you'll enjoy that one. They're going to teach us quite a bit about how to manage our public and private ponds, and I think that'll be a huge success. So that's what's up next.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that concludes committee reports. We do not have any items under unfinished business, so let's move to new business. Item 8C, consideration of a recreation program provider partnership between Music Together with Megan Kennedy and the Milton Parks and Rec to provide youth music classes. Matthew.
All right. Good evening. So I'd like to present, so Megan. So I guess a brief story, is Megan actually reached out to me to try to rent a facility. And I was like, well, maybe you should become a provider for us. So we definitely had a couple of meetings. It's a really good meeting. So at this time, I'd like to present Megan.
Everyone. I'm Megan Kennedy. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm interested in bringing a music and movement class to the city of Milton called Music Together. And I'm really looking forward to sharing with that about you. A little bit about me. I'm a resident of Alpharetta. Up until last year, I was an elementary school music teacher in Gwinnett County Public Schools. I'm now home with my 18-month-old son. Through becoming a mom, always looking for programs that I can take him to that work with our schedule with nap times and that are engaging. And of course, as a music teacher, that are musically enriching. So I've definitely seen the need for more programs like this. And I want to share a little bit more about the Music Together program and why I'm working through them. But first, a little bit more about me. I studied music education at Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania, and I'm a certified pre-K through 12th grade music educator. I taught in Gwinnett County Public Schools for the past 6 years, and as of April of this year, next month already, I will be established as Music with Megan LLC, and I will be a Music Together licensed center director and registered Music Together teacher. Music Together is a music education company that has been offering music and movement classes since 1987 and training teachers through that program. So currently they have a worldwide outreach across 40 countries with over 2,000 different program centers. And I'm in the process of completing my training right now. And I've just continuing to be impressed with their research-driven approach to music education, their philosophy of developing the innate musical abilities in our young learners. So through the classes, students have the opportunities to experience a lot of different play-based music activities. So those include things like singing, moving to the beat, exploring instruments, and having those joyful music-making experiences with their community, which includes other kids that are there, could include their siblings and a grown-up who comes with them. And through all of the activities that they do, it helps students develop emotionally, cognitively, socially, physically, and linguistically. And classes introduce students to a variety of different songs that are traditional and some that are new. And these songs are based in 12 different collections. So classes meet for 8 to 12 weeks each season, fall, winter, and spring. And in the summer, there are shorter class sessions available. So this really encourages cyclical enrollment as families are being presented with new material each session. So the hope is that they continue to enroll each session as their child grows up. And classes are for 0 to 5 years old altogether. So they're really experiencing a variety of different ways of developing, and the activities both reach out to students who are babies and ones who are toddlers. So classes meet 8 to 12 times, like I said, in a session, and that's for 45 minutes once per week. Classes are usually capped at 12 students because in addition to me and a grown-up they bring with them, that would be about 25 people in a class, and a minimum of 5 students in a class. So I'd like to hold at least one class per week at 9 a.m. That seems to be a great time for parents or caregivers to be looking for activities between nap times with their kids. And potentially also a 10 a.m. class if the 9 a.m. class were to fill up if there was a lot of interest. There would also be opportunity for shorter classes such as a free demonstration class or a class session that's just a couple of weeks during the holidays in between sessions, or just a single class around the holidays or a one-off during summer break or spring break. So it's my goal to be completely set up by the beginning of June. So with that in mind, I'd like to present a tentative schedule for the first 2 sessions. So keeping in mind, if I'm able to begin in June, a shorter summer session from mid-June to late July, which would be about 6 weeks, potentially with 1 additional week for a makeup class if families are on vacations in the summer. Classes are about $20 per student, so this would be $120 total per student. And if there's an additional sibling in the family, a discount of $100 for that additional sibling. And then the first 12-week full session would be in the fall, running from mid-August to mid-November, again, with potentially an extra week for a makeup class. And this would be $250 per student, with a $200 lower price point for an additional sibling enrolled in that. And I'm very flexible with start date and location and day of the week and all of that. But I'm really happy to be offering opportunities for making music for families. And I know me as a mom, I'm excited for my son to take these classes. So I'm hoping that that's something that might appeal to the city of Milton. And I look forward to the opportunity to work with all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Questions for Megan?
I have a question. So is it just you, or are you going to have any assistants?
No, just me. So I'll be the center director, but also the sole teacher in the program.
Okay. Sounds great.
Thank you.
I'm assuming we're talking about doing this at maybe, where, do we have a plan for where it would be?
Well, like, so obviously we do have some locations, but obviously that the Milton, so the Milton Community Center would be like a really good one, just
Sure.
because we have the Tyler Tuesday. We have that like every month, so that'd be good. Also over here by Community Place as well too.
Sure.
Great. Other questions? No, sounds a lot of fun. My kids are not eligible enough. Sorry. Like they're fine, but they're no.
Yeah, it's good.
If this is good, everybody likes it, then we should make a motion for staff to pursue going to agreement with staff and move forward to find a way, make this all work out.
I'll make a motion that staff move forward with making music with Megan as a vendor.
Awesome. Motion by Morgan,
I'll second.
a second by Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Good luck, Megan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. The next item under new business, item 8A, a presentation of a conceptual design plans for the active athletic park located on Deerfield Parkway.
Yes, thank you, Scott. I would like to introduce from our Public Works Department, our engineering project manager, Robert Del Ross. He'll make a few other introductions as we move forward, but this group is here to present the concepts, kind of mash all the ideas together. Yeah, and take a look at some images I know we're all excited to see. So
Awesome. Thanks, Robert, for being here.
Good evening, everyone. I'll turn it over to the exciting part of the presentation here momentarily. Rob Del Ross of Milton Public Works. I'm the capital design kind of function of Public Works. I do not do a lot of parks and rec. I do more sidewalks, roundabouts, your typical transportation improvements. With me tonight, Whit Alexander and Megan Chapman from Lowe's Design. They're working with Tom and I, working on finalizing the site plan for the parks right now. Ideally, we're going to be locking in the site plan over the next couple of months, maybe a vote in June or so with council, and then launching into the actual engineering and the development of the construction plans later this year. One more thing for me before I turn it over to Whit. I don't get to present in front of you very much. Just wanted to, from staff perspective, I always am very appreciative of boards and commissions. Y'all are volunteers. Y'all are giving us your time and not spending them with your families every month with us. So thank you. Staff is very appreciative of everything you give to the city. Whit, it is your turn.
Great.
Thanks, Robert.
Okay, let's see. So that's in the, I need to do the full screen mode. Let's see. Try that. Okay, you guys can see that just
Yeah,
fine?
that's great.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks, everybody. I'm Whit Alexander, one of the principals at Lowe's Design. I've got Megan Chapman here with my staff. Both of us have been working on this project for the last few months. I've recognized some faces here from the public meetings, of course, that we've held. And so I'm just going to dive right in. And for everyone, let me just kind of get a poll here. I know a couple of faces. Have all of you guys been to the public meetings or are aware of some of this? I don't want to repeat certain portions of it if you're familiar, but I'll probably give a high level because we're online too, correct? So for anyone in the audience as well.
Awesome.
Okay, so we have started this process, first meeting with the steering committee. There was an input process where representatives from athletic leagues, other park friends, other interested parties. We had a meeting where we asked everyone, besides baseball and soccer fields, which we know we're going to do no matter what else would you recommend go in the park? And the steering committee gave us a list of various program features, things like pickleball courts, walking trails, maybe possibly an off-leash dog park. There's a list here. There's outdoor basketball courts, maybe a small event space. Splash pad was another option, a picnic shelter and a pavilion. There was a playground mentioned because I believe There's a real strong desire for a special needs type playground, and also just keeping some open green space in the park if possible. Those were sort of the things that came up the most in the steering committee. What we did next, sort of simultaneously, we held a public input meeting. It was open to anybody from the public could come out and give us their input about that, help us rank those in terms of priority of what they felt was the most important features to add to the fields. And we did the same thing, the exact same questionnaire went out online through a survey process. And what you see over here on the left, this shows how many respondents we were receiving. You can see these were weekends, I believe. So when people were taking time on weekends to answer their surveys, we were getting, in one point, well north of 200 respondents, another 150 here. So we've received a lot of feedback here on the online version, had over 450 total contributions answering questions. So that was great. And the shakedown here, the results of both the online input and the public meeting pretty much line up. It was the same sort of ranking. Walking trails was really highly preferred. You see there, that was the number one vote getter. We had some other things. The playground was really desired. The off-leash dog park was strongly desired here, but not as strongly desired up here. Open green space was important, and pickleball courts. Keeping some splash pad playground was important to people at the public meeting. These things weren't so important once it was opened up to the entire public online. So what we did was, in the concepts that I'm going to share with you guys in a moment, is we mixed and matched. We took, the most important things that everybody told us they wanted, and we made sure they worked their way into every plan. And then we sort of mixed and matched some of the stuff that sort of got a mid-tier ranking, if you would. And what we want to present to you guys are the three alternative concepts, looking at the property 3 ways. After your feedback tonight, and we get your feedback, the next step is going to also be an additional public meeting where the public gets to have their say on the 3 concepts. And then we're going to boil it down. Then we're going to take the best comments from all 3. And it doesn't mean when I share these to you, oh, we have to pick 1 or we have to pick 3. If you see something you really like on 1 and you would like to add it to 3, there's some interchangeable parts here. You're going to see how that works. And then we're going to, like I said, after we get the next round of input, boil this down to the preliminary master plan. And we're going to run a little bit more cost estimating, budgeting at that level, do a little bit more preliminary engineering at that level to make sure some things are working physically on the property a little bit more. And then we'll finalize the master plan, and ultimately it'll go to council for approval. I think we come back to them one more time in May, and then we go to council after that. So you'll get to see it one more time as well. I'm going to skip forward a bit and get past these actually, because I think it's important that everyone is familiar with some of the site aspects. All right, so this graphic here, what you see here, this is Deerfield Parkway to kind of orient you. This is the Verizon campus across the street. This is Fry's electronics store that's over here on Alpharetta Highway. And I believe there's a daycare here in the corner, I believe, something like that. This graphic shows the elevation difference. So it orients you high to low. If it's orange and red, we're on top of a ridge or a hilltop. And if we're blue and dark purples, we're in a valley, if you would. And there's about 40 feet of fall from here to here, which is more than you're used to doing for sports fields, but it's not unmanageable. You're going to see how we were able to achieve that in just a moment. This area right here, we have about 20 feet of fall, give or take, from Deerfield Parkway up to the property line. And there's some things we can work on here at the property that would make that work. So these areas here, and that you see in the dark blues, important thing to see here, these are the stream valleys. So there's an active stream over here that requires buffers to that. There's actually a wetland in the orange down here in the bottom. But that little dot you said there in the middle of the pink, that is the stream head. That's where the spring starts. There's also another one over here in the middle of the site. small. And it goes into a culvert and goes under Deerfield. So, but that little portion there is protected. And then over here on the far end down here, we have a few buffers for the creek. This is at the bottom of that hill. In terms of what we can do with the buffers, there's various things and various procedures we can go through for all of that. We want to protect as much as we can, but there is still, it's not a absolute must that we have to stay out of the outer buffer with some of our grading. We can do that. The deeper you get into the buffer, the more permitting we have to do, the more you have to go to the state. So we're really trying to avoid that stuff as much as possible. Plus, it's the right thing to do to try to avoid those things. So that I'm going to set you up a little bit and preface it that way. And let me skip all the way back through this. And what I said before, this is not you guys. This is Sharon Springs Park in Forsyth County. So as you're looking, I want you to look, as we go through our concepts, I want you to understand this is where we're going next. So if you see detail in here and you wonder why detail is at this level of plan, but it's not in the concepts yet, it's because we're not there yet, right? So you may have questions about some things. It will be applied at the next level of plan. So just want you to see that and understand where we're heading. So getting back to y'all's project. All right, so again, Deerfield Parkway here, the Fry's development up here. This is we call it Concept 1. And again, if there's things you really like in Concept 1, you want to add them to Concept 2, 3, certainly feasible. One thing that you're going to see on all the concepts, and this sets up the kind of bones of how we have to think about laying this park out, is vehicle access. And where can we do that? There is a curb break on Deerfield right there. That's where we can get turn lanes in and out across Deerfield right there at that point. And we understand down the road, there is likelihood that the Fry's property will redevelop in some way. It might be a mixed use, might be, who knows? We don't know. But we do need to provide vehicular access up to that point for people in this ultimate development up here where Fry's is located to be able to get down to Deerfield Parkway. So we have this road connection we have to make no matter what. And there's some steepness to that, but we can make it work, with engineering. It's feasible. It's not going to be severely steep. We can make that work. So that is one of the parameters that we have to work around no matter what. The other is the footprint of 4 diamond fields. These are shown as 225-foot diamond fields to the outfield fence. That was what the steering committee told us was sort of the minimum. They would like bigger if they could, but to start with 225 and see how many we could fit in on the site there. And this is this end of the site, given how the site kind of widens out down here, that's really the only spot where we can get 4 diamond fields together. And I think y'all have seen that on some earlier iterations of this, but it's really the only spot where it works. So that's a must. Then we start getting into where do we place the rectangle fields, because they're the next big user of property. Well, if we've already bisected the site with the road here, well, then we have a development pod here and we have a development pod here. That's the logical orientation of the multi-purpose fields. The steering committee told us that 210 by 360 was the minimum. 210 allows them to run 3 other younger league fields across the length of one of those. So they can run 3 other fields, stripe the other direction right here. And they needed at least one of those no matter what. 180 by 360 was the minimum that they needed for a field. And that's what this field is shown as being, is 180. And the reason we're showing the minimum there is to minimize some walls and grading as much as possible. Again, getting back to that slope and the elevation difference, if you see a heavy black line here and a heavy black line there and a heavy black line there, that is a wall. And sorry, I'm not able to see. Macon, do you recall? This is roughly, if you come in off of Deerfield here and you enter, it's about 6 feet up in elevation to the corner of those 2 fields. So we'll have about a 6-foot high retaining wall. Maybe if we get into the refinement on this, we might be able to slope that without a retaining wall. We're going to try, but we know we can make that work. The further you go this way towards the valley where the stream is, it's getting steeper, steeper, steeper. The wall grows to about 10 feet in these areas. Still not the end of the world. We've seen sports fields with 10-foot walls, and it's a doable thing. In the middle of, I skipped forward, sorry. I must have hit an enter. So in the middle of the 4-field complex, we also have a 5-foot high retaining wall all the way through. And if y'all have ever been to Fowler Park, we did that park probably 10, 12 years ago. There is a grade differential between upper fields and lower fields, and we're going to have the same thing here. That allows us to have an upper terrace of fields. The building and some of the spectators are up on that upper plaza, and then you look down on 2 of the sunken fields down below. It's kind of a neat experience, and it helps lower the grading costs and all of that type of stuff. So we can make that work. Over on this area is strictly how tightly could we squeeze the field in and make it work. This over here, though, gives us a few opportunities. Everyone in the steering committee sort of asked, hey, it would really be nice to have a little bit of extra practice space. Maybe just places to set up for, lawn chairs, and if you've got tables and during an event, a little bit of space outside the stripes of the field and the safety zone, yes. So we can have all of this. The idea is to be under artificial turf all the way out to the retaining wall. So there's area out here for a little bit extra practice, a little bit area in here for event space, those kind of things. So it's not a perfect rectangle, but it gives you flexibility, if you would. And with that is a concession restroom building that would serve that. Same thing with the Diamond Fields concession restroom building. Over on the Diamond Fields, batting cages you see in gray. We've got 4 inside the complex and then 4 more outside the complex. There's going to be times when coaches bring teams out and the complex may be locked up for maintenance sake or something like that, and they still need a place to be able to get in and do practice at the batting cages. They don't have to go into the complex to do that. So those are out here. Supporting the amenities in the sports, we have storage building here for various baseball equipment. We have storage building here for various rectangle field equipment. And then we even have a little workshop here for staff to work on. You're not necessarily cutting grass on the fields, but you still have to mow other areas, and there'll be some weed eating, and there'll be a few things like that. So the idea, a little workshop here, if you would, for staff. So that sets up the big bones of how all of this would function. And because, remember I had the ridge here before, all of this is falling towards this creek, and all of this is falling towards this creek. So stormwater detention, we have to reserve a little space for that down in the corner. And on this complex, what we're recommending is underneath the practice turf zone, we do underground storage for detention. Big cells of pipes under there basically serve as the detention pond, but we don't have to have a pond out there taking up space that can't be used for anything else. We just stick the detention under the practice area of the artificial turf. And we've done that recently in Dunwoody at Brook Run Park. If y'all have been there and seen that, that's how we tackled that problem there. All right, so all of the big stuff talked about there. We have a walking loop. You see the walking trail going around. Now, in order to squeeze it in, we jump out onto Deerfield with the sidewalk connection and improve that bit of sidewalk connection to trail. That was just a little kind of a trick out of the bag here in order to get that whole loop in if possible, and then make that a full walking loop. Other pedestrian connections you see connecting the fields and the parking lots and all of those types of things. Back in this corner, though, is sort of the area where we look to do the other features, the things that steering committee recommended, the things that people voted on. And in each one of these concepts, you're going to see a different mix. So this concept does not have pickleball. What it has is the playground with a restroom building and a pavilion serving those. There's the pavilion down here. Between the pavilion and the playground, there's an open lawn area where you can rent inflatables and set those up. If you rent the pavilion for a birthday party, you could bring in the jump houses and things like that with it. So the open lawn serves for that. And then this shows splash pad, the little blue area up there being splash pad to go with playground. and sidewalks connecting all of that. A boardwalk back across the wooded stream valley there, making that connection loop return on itself. Macon, am I missing anything on that? Covered all that fairly well. Any questions on this before I jump to, because the next two concepts are going to be various iterations of this, and so if you've got any questions here, this would be a good time to go over those.
Questions for Whit? Okay. Wait, in the extra practice area 11, what kind of size are we talking about that space?
I'm going to just, if this is 210, that is 160 by 120. So 10,000 square feet.
Yep.
12,000 square feet,
Okay.
roughly in there, something like that.
Got it. Thanks.
And one other reason, all right, so something to consider too is no matter what happens in any of these configurations, doing the fields the way we've done them and the drive coming out to Deerfield this way, as everyone knows, when you leave a park after a big tournament or a big event, there's always, when you leave a football game, there's always the stacking issues with cars. This provides us the most stacking because we want a long driveway before you get to the main road.
Yeah.
We don't want parking lots up adjacent to a road.
Yep.
And it becomes sort of a traffic nightmare, a big snarl, everybody trying to get out. They're all fighting each other to get out. We want to have a lot of stacking. So that's what that solves. And one other thing in this concept, we talked about a 6-foot grade separation as you drive in. It would not be very difficult to go another 6 feet up and do a pedestrian bridge over. So you drive in underneath the pedestrian bridge. That way, if you're on field 1 and you need to go to field 2, you're not having to cross the road. You have a pedestrian connection going over to the concession restroom building that joins all of that together. So these two function as one, even though there's a road splitting them in the middle. And Shorty Howe Park, if you've ever seen that in Gwinnett, it's on Pleasant Hill. We did that 20 years ago with a bridge over the entrance in the same way. So, and you'll see that on all of them.
Other questions before we move on to?
I have a question. In the future, would there be another entrance exit on the backside with the future mixed use land?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Whoever is going to do this development, they would have their access off of Webb, Alpharetta, and so you would be able to connect back through. And I would imagine that would be a condition of any kind of development. They would not be able to preclude someone from exiting through their property, right?
So the idea is this is likely going to be kind of approved first. The mixed-use development at Fry's would come second, and with our road, as shown, the property to the north would be required to accommodate it through their property at a new intersection of 9, potentially even with a traffic signal there, which would be super nice to allow the users of the park to access from 9 instead of going through Deerfield.
Just as their customers would want to access Deerfield,
Yeah.
the city would probably not allow them to gate it off to where park users could go through their development, most likely.
Right.
So.
Perfect. Super.
Okay, so I'm going to switch to concept 2. Any other questions? I'm sorry. Before I
No,
jump.
thanks, Whit.
Okay. So concept 2, you're going to see the big bones set up the same way. I'm not going to go through all of the reasons why on that again. Soccer's largely the same way. This accommodates more parking. This is the parking that these fields would generate. And if we needed to accommodate all of the parking on site. This concept 1 does not quite generate enough parking, or does not provide enough parking for all the fields, basically, based on typical standard numbers. But we understand the city is working on some other options, some agreements where that may not matter. So the field disappearing to make room for parking probably should not enter into any kind of selection process at this point, because I think the city has other options on solving parking.
Thanks.
And that was this concept. We weren't aware of that until we got a little bit further down the road on that. So otherwise, pretty much everything on this concept is the same, except for the parking count. So I want to jump to 3. 3 is where we make some other changes. On 3, we add a 250-foot field, not a 225. What that does is it does make this get a little tighter than normal inside the inside the complex. Still feasible. It'll still work. We've done this. This amount of space has shrunk a little bit on the interior, but we've done that before. You've probably all been to parks where, it's not as generous, but that gives us a larger field to 250 feet. And that'll be an important decision point. Is it better to have the extra space inside and everybody play 225? Maybe we net to 250. You've seen outfield fences netted to where you can play a longer distance. Or is it better to have the longer distance, even if that means giving up a little space internally? And that's kind of a decision point that everybody needs to make. This option, what we showed over here, is doing stormwater detention not under the turf field. If we have to get into a budgetary item, if budget starts to get a little tight, this would be the more economical solution. We would hope to capture as much space into the turf as possible, but this might have to be, as we get deeper into the engineering on this, that might be a decision point, just not sure. And then the amenities in the back, that's where we change and swap to a different option. If we're going to do 8 pickleball, which is sort of the minimum we would want to do back there, that's what that looks like. Now we don't really have room for the big pavilion, the open lawn. Now the splash pad sort of has to go away. We still get a playground with a pavilion and some restrooms back there with that. And they share pavilion restrooms with pickleball. And then you have the playground to join that. Everything else here being largely what you saw before. So those are the 3 different ways. If this was a larger piece of property, we would have completely shifted the fields around and shifted parking around and all those types of things. But the land really told us what had to happen with the layout of the fields. And so then it was more fine tuning on the smaller amenities. So with that, any questions on 3 or 1 or any other feedback you guys would like to give us?
I have a question. So just looking at concept, really just 1, where you have the extended turf field, where it has 11 there. So there's no way to incorporate on concept 3 the splash pad and the gazebo. I know you have stormwater detention, but I'm latching on to what you said about having it underground.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's just money, right?
Sure, exactly. That's it. Exactly. That's it.
So you can't do that?
Oh, what's that? So
Incorporate where the stormwater.
So if we put, say for instance, we wanted to not do a pond. If we wanted to just raise this area up and do a splash pad there, perhaps, is that what you're saying? Get more of the smaller stuff back there? I think we probably could. There's some ADA. We're really down the hill here because being the low spot going down there's some ADA things to work out. Probably still doable to get down there. I tend to like things that are children oriented. I don't want them immediately adjacent to a parking lot because I want a little separation, maybe a little fence there, but I don't like them being isolated too much away from parking just for passive policing sake. Because we do like the idea that, responsible eyes are driving past on a regular basis, and that tends to cut down on nefarious activity. So if we were to place anything back here, it might be a switch. I don't think we could get all the pickleball back there, though. I would probably want to do the pickleball back there versus the children's play, open space, that type stuff. Let me go back to 1 real quick. And this
I guess I'm also just thinking of like in the heat of the summer on concept 3 with no pavilion, if there's any way we could add some covered space.
There's, let me show you. It's not the big pavilion, like a big 20 table type pavilion, but you see some little shade structures in here around. These would be the little 10-foot by 10-foot type shade shelters that you've probably seen around things. So we would have a little bit of that. And there's still enough room in here to work in more shade if we need to. We could definitely add that.
I think I heard you, Stephanie, you could conceivably move the number 8 pavilion all the way down.
Yeah.
And it's really just a break decision point around
Mhm.
what's it cost to have open stormwater detention versus closed, right?
That's right.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
because you could put anything on top of it once you decide you want to cover it or not.
Courts and such, yes. Have to double check any kind of building footprints. Foundational loads, things like
Yeah.
that tend to get a little funny.
Oh, yeah.
But tennis courts, fences, probably not a problem. Or pickleball courts, I mean.
But I guess if you put that pavilion into the space 11 a little bit,
Mhm.
then you're off of the,
Yeah. I'm just
But-
thinking about birthday parties.
Yes, right. Okay.
yeah. I guess in the next, one of the iterations, the question will be, what is the cost of open versus closed stormwater detention? And then we can decide
Mhm.
better on what goes on top. So, yeah, good point. Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments from the board for Whit?
Do you have, and you guys, you showed us
Mm-hmm.
the results of the surveys and things back in the beginning, and I've already forgotten it. I'm so sorry. But do you have an inkling of which people heavily prefer more? Is it pickleball or is it splash pad?
That's okay. So I'm going to do the online version here first. Pickleball was here
Mm-hmm.
and splash pad was, I mean, they are
Like
neck
neck
and
and
neck,
neck.
right?
My only thought is my children are well past the page. Well, I don't know. I guess any kid can go get in a splash pad, but I know we don't have that
Mhm.
as a feature in Milton. We have pickleball, not as readily as some people want it. I have recognized that, but I'm just trying to think of how can we get more options
We
that,
don't have any pickleball.
like private parks. I mean, like communities.
Like neighborhoods.
Like neighborhoods, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
people who came to the public input meeting that
Mhm.
actually came out that evening, the splash pad beat pickleball, not terribly, but by a wider margin.
Yeah, a little
Sure.
bit.
I mean, I'm like right in the middle. I could really go either way. I love both. But I just wondered if there's really not a leaning specifically. It doesn't sound like, maybe it sounds more splash pad.
Let me go back to one. I'm just sort of kind of designing on the fly in my head here a little bit. But if this
Sure.
is the splash pad option that gives more of the pavilion, the open space, all the things, there is, I mean, it's not completely out of the picture that we could not make some adjustments in here and squeeze in by by a hair, the pickleball that we need if we were to go down in this area.
That route, yeah.
I mean, I, with children who have played lacrosse, I appreciate, and football, appreciate
Mhm.
that extra space there
Mm-hmm.
for coaches' meetings and things
Mhm.
like that, but that's a lot of space.
Mhm.
Um,
And you still have this area here,
right.
Yep.
I'm looking at that, thinking that's plenty of space.
Mhm.
Do you have to have 8 of the pickleball courts? Or could it just be like 4?
We always say 6 is the minimum you need to run a round robin tournament of any
Oh,
kind.
okay.
But once you build them, they really draw people.
Mhm.
And so the more you can get. So we were trying to go for as many as we could back there.
Okay.
And 8 was sort of the how many we could fit into that space. We've presented 6 before, and all the pickleball aficionados said, "Oh, no, that's way too small." Yep. So we were trying to maximize that.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea of pulling those down into that section 11.
And they would be up on court level or up on field level if we
Mhm.
did this because, we have the retaining wall. So the retaining wall would be out at the far end of the courts.
Yep.
And then you would have the safety zone, at the end of behind your goal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we would net that.
Right.
And then you would have immediately, I mean, there would not be more than 5 feet before you had the start of pickleball fencing and all that stuff. But it's worth exploring a little bit.
Yeah. And like I said, I think the cost will be the driver, whether you want to choose to develop it or not.
Yeah.
You can come back to. Other comments from the board? Good discussion.
Yeah, those were absolutely a couple points that we wanted to hear further discussion from the board. I did want to bring up the additional bigger baseball field option and, get any feedback or feelings from the board on that. And I also wanted to bring up that our, if we're calling it Field 1, this center rectangle field is significantly shorter. I know we don't have our experts in lacrosse here tonight, but I did just want to bring that to your attention. That is a bit shorter and shrunken down than that larger field we see.
Yep.
If we're calling it Field 2 for these purposes. But yeah, if there's any thoughts from the board on those couple items, I know we hit the amenities, hit that extra, space on that bottom field. But yeah, if there's any thoughts to share, I think
Now, I'll make a point.
we'd
real
all be
quick
open to hearing.
about the two field sizes.
Mhm.
Is that if we did not park this side, if this was just a driveway through with only parking on the far side, then you could get the two would be 210 by 360.
360.
It's all a matter of, and that's a fine tuning thing that we can figure out down the road a little bit.
Yep.
Depending upon how the parking scenario shakes out. You could get back to the two fields being 210 wide.
Parking is a concern to me though already, even at 250. So I feel like if we take out that extra 50,
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting real time. We're going back to legacy parking.
So is that smaller field not regulation?
It
for-
is, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
You
a
can
tight
completely play
regulation.
Soccer, lacrosse, football on it.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
The difference is that the leagues liked the wider because the wider gives them the length they need when they strike the three other fields the 90-degree direction.
Yep.
They needed the 210 to run a mini field the other way.
Yep. Side on side.
Quick note on the parking. You'll get more information on that in your meeting in May. Tom and I are working very hard behind the scenes. We're very optimistic that we've got solutions to this. We're just not quite ready to talk about this
Yeah.
tonight.
Fair enough.
Good.
Robert, thanks.
One other thing I wanted to throw out there. I'm interrupting Thomas. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're
You
good.
didn't realize,
This is what it's all about.
know that you were going through a list as well. One thing that Tom and I are thinking about that wasn't shown on any of these concepts that could be applicable to all of them. The conversation earlier with Whit about parking and in peak times, we're expecting some queues, a large rush in and a large rush out. We're thinking about a second entrance and maybe not a second entrance, maybe a second exit out of the parking A, just as a relief when things get really crazy, and exit onto Deerfield somewhere in this vicinity, not on top of the stream, but pretty easily, I think we're thinking about an exit only out of parking lot A back onto Deerfield,
Yeah.
making a right.
It's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And going back to Thomas's question, I don't know enough about baseball. I mean, I'm guessing the 250, the older kids would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would defer. I mean, the field at Bell is not 250, right?
It's a little bigger than 250.
It's a little bigger, but it's not 300. It's
Yeah.
fenced up as what described earlier. So you could do the same thing here with a big field, but we've got time to get some input from others to talk us about what field size is this. I mean, I think the idea that we got four baseball fields and two rectangles is what we were trying to accomplish in the park.
Agreed.
And that's in there. So we've got a couple more meetings to, as Whit said, fine tune the pieces. I think there's a discussion I've heard so far, and then we'll open up to public comment. Is this lower corner, the north corner, if you will, is lots of ideas of moving the pieces around on the chess table, and part of it's around how much is buildable and what kind of trade-off is on cost to make it buildable, I guess. And so
Correct.
you mean conceivably you could have everything you want down there, or you may decide that covering a stormwater detention pond costs an exorbitant amount of money, that it's not worth the trade-off, and
Right.
force us to pick 2 out of 3 rather than I want to eat them all. So I've heard everybody's give us a lot of input already on let's try and maximize the most of it. We've got, it's a brand new park. Let's put as much in as we can, but at the same time, we got to be responsible to our citizens about what it costs to do it. So I think my takeaway from this first presentation is let's not throw anything out yet, and let's let the public continue to weigh in on what they really want to see in the park. Thanks, Whit.
Thank you.
It's great.
Okay, thank you.
Um, Thomas, you got public comment we want to open up to, and
I have not received any public comment cards for this item.
anybody want to speak up? This is your chance. I appreciate you all being here. You took time out of your day to come to the meeting.
Yes, I would ask you to please fill out one of the yellow cards.
And there is a meeting next week, right?
Yes, that's
Tuesday.
correct. Yep, on Tuesday, the 25th, we have our second Deerfield public input meeting.
What, that's at what time, Whit, while we're talking?
5:30.
5:30? 5:30 to 7:30?
That's where we were last time.
Yep.
Correct.
Starting at 5:30 at the courtroom at the Public Safety Complex on 9.
Awesome.
And we'll have these, what we're going to have is these three boards. We're going to have the background, the slopes, and so we can explain a little bit if people don't know. And we'll have the three boards, and then there's going to be opportunity to walk up, talk to us. We're not going to do a formal presentation. It's going to be an open house style.
Yep.
Anybody can come walk up and talk to us about the options, and then fill out comment cards, and we'll take the comment cards back and put all of that into consideration.
Awesome.
Great.
And for while we're waiting for those of you filling out cards, you could come up and speak and fill out your card when you finish speaking. And
Yeah, you'll give it to me, and you're welcome to fill it out after you speak.
yeah, just come up and give us your name and your address, and we'll give you
Thank you, sir.
3-4 minutes of public comment. Glad to hear from you.
James Pruitt, 1100 Autumn Close in Milton. Here on behalf of the Hopewell Board, and got a couple questions. With the layout of the fields, have we looked at how the sun is positioned in the spring? So we're not, because I know on Field 3 at Bell Memorial Park, we're looking dead in the sun in the afternoon. I mean, in the late evenings and even on Field 5, the sun comes down. So we make sure we're considering all that, and if there's a wall that needs to go up somewhere.
Well, there's a wagon wheel complex. You're facing all four directions. Someone's going to have that condition.
No, I get that, but just to try to make sure we minimizing and if that we can get one wall maybe on field, whatever.
Yeah, they're not numbered, but I hear what you're saying.
I'm sorry?
I hear what you're saying, Pruitt.
Yeah.
They're not numbered yet, but yeah.
Because it's good. I mean, I'm just trying to do it in my head. I mean, the one that looks like it's wind up being the bigger field is probably going to have some direct sun in the afternoons, late evenings, and in weeknight games. That's tough for hitters and umpires and catchers.
As much as we can.
Yeah. At that spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, the road's above it, right, because there's a retaining wall of the road, and then there's trees up there, but there's still.
We're going to be lower. The way the site's going to work is the property line is going to be up on the hill, and the field's likely going to be down lower. So, as she was mentioning, any kind of tree buffer that's left along the property line will actually be up.
Be a buffer.
All right, just want to make sure that we consider that type of stuff. My other question is about drainage, because Field 4 at Bell Memorial Park, well, I love the park, but all the concrete and the walk paths and everything runs down to Field 4, down the steps that lead to that. Also have some washout on Field 5. So just want to make sure we don't, like, if we need to put in, accommodate for that drainage so that we're not dumping it onto baseball fields. Are just the two of the things. And the last one, the possibility of maybe shrinking the 3 to 200 and then making the big field bigger as an option. I don't know. Just,
Yeah, the minimum that all the leagues told us was 225.
Is it 325? No. Yeah, because I said, I mean, full disclosure, I talked to Thomas about this like year and a half ago.
Yeah, very early on.
And it was 200, because that's what we've got at Hopewell now. On the fields are 200. And, maybe 200, 225 on one, and then a big one. Because we've got a lot of this now, and try to make it special and do something really nice for that bigger field to try to keep kids playing in our park, because they get a chance to go play at the big field instead of running to one of the 50,000 travel teams that are around here.
See on 3 there, if we were to shrink one of those two to 200, pick up another.
Which would be about,
In the same footprint.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, like just, Brown, you don't have that AutoCAD and all that fun stuff, right? So, yeah, no, that's all I've got. So,
Thank you, sir.
anything you want, you're done.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Rob Tiemann. I'm the president of Hopewell Baseball now. So James covered a lot of things that I was addressed. 1990 Long Hollow Lane, Milton, Georgia. James covered a lot of the baseball field things that I was going to bring up myself too. So I think there's more discussion there. I think what we should do from a field size is take a look at our numbers across age groups and make sure we've got the right size fields for the size of the kids that we have, from all the way from 4 years old all the way up to 16, 17, 18. So we can do that analysis and make sure that the fields make sense. I think the one thing that stuck out to me that is less baseball and more kind of catered to the families of the baseball is, if you're ever at Bell during baseball season, you will see that the playground gets just as much action as the baseball fields, right? And these concepts right now have the playground all the way to the side of the field. And I can just imagine my inbox, it starts going and people complaining about, Joey's little sister having to go all the way across through the parking lot to go play in the playground, probably 500 feet away from where the baseball games are going on. So I would ask that we consider maybe an additional playground facility near the baseball field so that those siblings can be playing close by where their families are and we don't have kids running through the parking lot. I think that's it though. Thank you guys.
Super. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
Don't believe there's any further public comment on the item.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for participating in that discussion. Reminder that Tuesday is open house for more input. We will now move on to item 9A, update on the Milton City Park Preserve active and passive park projects. Back to.
Yeah, we do have another guest. We're going to give him just a minute, but yeah, we do have the city engineer here, Scott Tekach. Will be touching on these items for us in a little more detail than staff can do.
We skip a.
Thanks again, guys.
Do we lose Scott? Is he going to go out?
He just stepped out. He'll be right with us.
A momentary pause in the agenda.
We skip 8B.
We were going to go to Scott
Here he
to talk
comes.
about. Here he comes.
Hey, Scott. Hate to put you right on the hot seat, but we're ready for you.
No, I apologize.
Hey, no worries. So if you don't mind, we'll start with the Milton City Park and Preserve active and passive park projects, and then you can kind of segue into Legacy Park parking lot improvements after.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Scott Koch. I'm your city engineer, and I'm here this evening to give you an update on Legacy and Milton Park and Preserve passive park as well as the active park. So with the Milton Park and Preserve, or MCPP, passive park, we are approximately 25% complete with the project's construction. We are required to complete the project by August of 2025 in accordance with the grant that we have, the $1.5 million grant with the DNR. We've completed some drainage repairs to the channels and the adjacent trail on phase 1, just to give you all a reference. I apologize for this busy graphic. This area is phase one, which the city put in a few years ago. And we did have some drainage issues in this area and down in here that we're remediating. Plantings will be installed in early April on phase one and around the southern ponds. So again, the southern ponds would be these 2 ponds in this area here. We have removed the old golf cart paths, and we're recycling that concrete for use as subgrade within the new trail. We have completed all the invasive species removal on phase 2. So again, that would be in this area here adjacent to Chicken Creek. Weir number 1 and weir number 3 are completed, and the contractor is in the process of completing the outfalls. Weir number 1 is a pretty large concrete structure that's located out here, and it's where the ponds outfall into Chicken Creek. Weir 3 is in this area here, and that is actually a massive structure that's about 70 feet long by about 10 feet high. If you've been out there and you've seen it, it's pretty impressive. The boardwalks are under construction near the ponds right now, and we are about 40% complete with the removal of the old golf course drainage infrastructure. And just to kind of recap, and if I'm saying things that y'all know, I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, but in accordance with the grant, we were required to take a lot of the golf course drainage infrastructure, and return it to a more natural looking type of infrastructure. So this would be like swells with plunge pools and weirs and things like that. So before I move on to the next park, do you guys have any questions about what we're doing out there or concerns?
All good. Thanks, Scott.
Next is the Milton Park and Preserve MCPP Active Park. We have retained a consultant to complete a 30% conceptual design, and we wanted to do that because we really wanted to see like what was the cost going to be, what were the amenities going to look like, where were they going to be, all that kind of stuff. So the scope of that 30% design included removal and replacement of the existing parking lot, removal and replacement of the tennis courts, installation of an observation area for the tennis courts, drainage enhancements for the parking lot and the tennis courts, increasing the number of parking stalls. And I know you're going to ask me, like, how many more parking stalls are you going to add? I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I'll happy to get you that information. We are also looking at moving the ingress-egress location, and that will solve a site distance issue for the facility. We'll install a playground area south of the community center, and we will place that within accordance of the master plan for the parks. And then we'll install new lighting in tennis courts, new lighting in the parking lot and the tennis courts. Okay, you guys sitting down? The conceptual cost for this is $2.6 million. Which is a little more than we were expecting. So staff is working on doing some value engineering, and I'll show you some graphics to kind of walk you through that. But we're looking at value engineering that to reduce some of the costs. The red line plans have been, for the 30%, have been sent back to the engineer to include some conceptual plan that we as staff did to try to save some money. And we'll be scheduling a comment resolution between the city and the consultant to address the red line issues. We're also going to be looking at having a public meeting to kind of roll this out once we've kind of landed on what it is that we're doing. So here is what was originally designed by the engineer. And so you can see where the parking lot is. We're not changing the footprint of that significantly, but we are adding some additional parking up in here, which will likely require a small retaining wall here. One of the biggest changes is we're looking at moving the entrance and exit or ingress egress from this point to this point. We want to do that because this sits right at the top of a vertical curve, which is the worst possible place that you could have it. So I'm sure you have heard or experienced yourself trying to make a right-hand turn out here where a left-hand turn can be a little scary. So we're trying to improve that safety issue. We're also looking at redoing all the drainage in here. Originally, we were thinking about bringing the drainage kind of down in this area and routing it through here. When we designed the passive park, we intentionally added capacity for the conveyance system so that we could take the drainage off of this facility without having to put in a new conveyance system once it leaves the parking lot area. This was where they originally had slotted the playground. We now know that that was not the right spot. We want to move that further to the south, so that we're doing that now. We're putting in these 3 tennis courts here with the correct alignment. I think it's 12%. Something that we missed in the original design, and so we had to go back and change the orientation. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. The viewing or the pavilion area, whatever we were thinking, is probably going to be somewhere in this area or maybe in here. We haven't completely landed on that. With the price tag, we're looking at kind of going from this cartoon to this cartoon, where we would move the 2 of the tennis courts over to this kind of an alignment, reduce the size of the parking area a little bit. We're thinking about if there's something that we can do over here to maybe put in some gravel for overflow parking, whatever that we can do to accommodate that, because we've heard very loud and clear from the citizens at our public meeting open house for the passive park that there is a concern about the number of parking stalls out there. So, oh, and by the way, just a quick point of reference based on your last presentation, the differential between underground and above ground detention is about 3 to 4 to 1. So if it's $100 to put in an above ground detention, for underground, you're looking at $300 to $400, just kind of as a benchmark. So that's kind of where we are with this project. Do you have any questions or comments on this one?
So when this second drawing, for cost purposes, I guess, the parking in this, you said it would reduce the original planned parking. How many more spots approximately would it be than there are there now?
So again, I knew that question was going to come, but I apologize. I just did not have time to get you a real number. I think we were looking at adding like another 30 to 40.
So this plan would add 30 to 40?
This one would.
What would the first one add?
So again, if
More?
we did, so this would be adding probably another 30 to 40-ish. If we went with this type of geometry, what we're wanting to do is maybe not pave this, put in gravel, so there is some additional parking, because asphalt's quite a bit more expensive than gravel. So we are doing our very best to maximize the parking out there to whatever degree.
But the
we can.
footprint wouldn't be smaller than it is now?
It would be bigger.
Okay.
In either scenario, it will be bigger than it is now.
Okay.
What's the advantage of having that third tennis court? Well, I guess it's those 2 tennis courts on, like, what's the difference with the angles? Why would we need to do one on an angle like that?
So apparently there is some standard in the tennis world that, based on the way that the sun rises and falls, that this 12-degree angle off the center is how they want the tennis courts laid out.
Yep.
So this court obviously is not going to be ideal, but
So you
we're
only
kind of
move 2.
balancing that criteria with cost.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Did that answer your question?
It did, yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments about this one? Okay. With Legacy, same thing. We've retained a professional engineering firm to help us kind of scope this out. And that scope included the removal and replacement of the parking lot, drainage enhancements to increase the size of the existing drainage detention facility, and install a new storm drain system in the parking lot. Obviously, increasing the number of parking stalls, adding an additional ingress egress off of Arnold Mill Road, which we know would really help with a lot of the traffic congestion, installing a new septic system for the bathrooms, installing a secure fenced area for maintenance, park maintenance, materials and equipment, installing a concrete dumpster pad with an enclosure, installing a memorial wall, and that cost was around $804,000. So this was a long enough facilitated that we had to break it into two different sheets. So this is the northern portion, and you can see that we're actually adding some parking up in here and then parking through here. We wanted to do some additional parking in here, but the retaining walls that would be required were kind of cost prohibitive. And then here would be the southern area for the parking area here. We're also looking at doing some enhancements for this access into the school over here. And my understanding is that the city has an agreement with the school that they get use of the facility, and then we get use of some of the overflow parking in here. So we anticipate that that will continue. And then back to this cartoon, excuse me. This would be the access off of Arnold Mill Road. You would be able to make a left-hand turn in here and a right-hand turn into it. You would not be able to make a left-hand turn out, but you would be able to make a right-hand turn out. So it's not full access, but it's pretty close. And then we're looking at increasing the detention pond here and then potentially having an additional detention pond through here. One of my comments is I think that we could actually get rid of this detention pond and actually increase this space for a larger detention pond through here so that we're not splitting those. But again, there's going to be some cost in retaining walls here. Those retaining walls could be made integral to the stormwater facility itself, which would save a little bit of money. So that's kind of my presentation. I'll open it up for questions or comments if you have any more.
Allison Rash, she's not here.
Yeah.
What's the timing on the Legacy Park?
One of the things that I need to do is sit down with the parks director and talk about priorities. And so we haven't had that conversation yet. And so I can't give you a solid answer on that. The thinking is we wanted to kind of make sure that we laid out what it is that we think we're doing, what the costs are going to be, and then start prioritizing. Conversely, with MCPP Active, we have a grant. So we're going to have to continue to move forward with that design to meet the obligations of that grant. So my engineer's already queued up to get that going as soon as we can land on what we're doing.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Other questions for Scott on either property?
Okay. Thank you for your
All
time.
good. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Scott, really appreciate it.
Okay, jumping around on our agenda, we move back to item 8B, consideration of Milton Parks and Recreation participant and volunteer conduct policy.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes, I know. Hopefully the board has had an opportunity this week to review this policy. It comes as a new policy for the department. Staff is really doing our best to, beef up our policies and procedures, make sure we're kind of covering every end of the spectrum for programs and volunteers and our participants. And with this policy, it really outlines the disciplinary measures, for those who are in violation. Basically just kind of helps make decisions with some guidance. So what we're looking for here today is just a discussion, your thoughts. I know we've, at first glance, it's kind of a lot of info, provided a lot of examples of, violations and, different offenses that one could be in.
And I'm assuming that the program providers have their own.
The program providers are encouraged to have their own. This would be a baseline for them, probably built into our agreement somewhere, just to make sure our providers are aware of our expectations and the rules that, the department kind of goes by. Because some of these offenses, as you see, are the minor offenses, might not even reach staff. Once we get into the more significant issues and, major offenses, that's when it gets brought to the attention of staff. But the way we've kind of written this one up, it is, for, what do we call it? The, participant as well as volunteer conduct. So.
Right. So I'm without diving into the details yet, I suspect that perhaps this policy, if it's adopted, becomes then appendix, an attachment to the existing provider agreement for all providers. So we say here is,
That's correct.
rather
yeah.
than it stands alone,
would-
so they don't have it in their document. That way they could beef up their, if they're short, or
Exactly.
they could take their internal policy and just say, refer to Appendix G.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something we have tucked away, and when something occurs, we, pull it out and
Yeah.
this is their first time seeing it
Right.
kind of deal.
No, I
Staff
like it.
also run programs, like myself, Matthew, Michaela. So this would be ours.
Mhm.
This would be adopted for the city to utilize too for summer camp, for any programs that we run with youth.
Yep. Yeah, let's not
that's
forget
a,
that.
like
a
Thank
great
you.
point. Yeah.
Yep.
I like the fact that y'all have, a policy and procedure that y'all can point to fix problems as they arise rather than
Make it
having to
up as
go
we
back to providers.
Exactly. That's the goal.
No, I like it.
Yep.
I've reviewed it. I don't have any
Okay.
edits.
We are open to suggestions or, any revisions that might be necessary, but if, all looks good and we're all in agreement, we would entertain a motion to approve the agreement.
Yeah, I think it's detailed enough and gives ultimately Park Department control of the situations as they arise. I suspect that, I want to believe that they don't arise often, but this gives clear guidance on what to do when it happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm good with that. If there's no comments or changes, then let's thank the staff for their hard work and approve their policy.
I'll make a motion that we approve the City of Milton Parks and Recreation Department participant volunteer conduct and discipline policy.
A motion by Scott,
Second.
a second by Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. So moved. Thanks. Great work, team. That'll be very helpful. Now we'll jump back to city staff reports and communications, community outreach update.
Unfortunately, Emily can't be here to give you the long list of, all her tasks and everything she's got going on, but I do have a couple of our main bullet points that, her bigger items that she's got going on right now. Our CGA, our Citizens Government Academy is concluding next week with a Parks and Recreation presentation. So looking forward to wrapping that up and telling our citizens that are attending this year all about the department and what we've got going on. It's certainly grown in the past 5 years, this presentation, since I've been involved. So it'll be exciting. That one is taking place next Tuesday. We've also got our community egg hunt coming up on March 29th in collaboration with Stone Creek Church. The event is from 4 to 7 with a sensory-friendly egg hunt beginning at 3 p.m. Emily and as well as Stone Creek have gone above and beyond. I can't, is it 50,000 eggs this year, 40,000 vendors and bounce houses and, just opportunities for the whole community. So it'll be another fun one over at Cambridge High School. And again, that's March 29th. And lastly, Emily is finalizing the candidates for the summer intern program. So she's been conducting interviews probably the last month and a half at least, and narrowing down those candidates. It's always a well sought after internship, and we're looking forward to having some great folks come in again this summer. And that's all I've got.
Awesome.
For community outreach update.
Thanks. You did a good job representing Emily.
I
Thanks,
appreciate
Thomas.
it. Yeah.
And then lastly, update on the 2025 Wall of Fame process. If you haven't seen the video, Thomas and the communications team did a fantastic job.
Great job.
I appreciate it. But yes, so, the window is still open. We're still receiving nominations. They're a little slow right now. We tend to see them, start trickling in a little heavier once we really put that deadline out for, we're closing down nominations. We're probably looking at end of May to shut it down. And then I'll begin, I'll create those ballots for you guys probably start, hopefully receive those ballots sometime in June. Then maybe I can make the announcement in July as well as start contacting our inductees this year. So the final thing will be the ceremony. We're going to hold it again at the end of October, probably that second week before Championship Saturday over at Bell Memorial Park, just to give us an extra week, if we were affected by any weather. But looking at the end of May to close the nominations.
How many do you have so far, Thomas? Just
I
curious.
think I've got 3 in so far.
Okay. Good. Okay. That is concludes Wall of Fame. Is there any other business in front of the Parks and Rec Board today? There is not. We've had a very thorough, comprehensive meeting this month. Look forward to Tuesday's session to hear some more input on the park. And if that's the case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
A motion by Morgan,
Second.
second by Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thanks, everyone.